Welcome inside the War Room. I'm your host, Andrew Valancourt, and we're back today for episode 60 of the Dynasty War Room podcast. On today's show, we are going to break down some rookie sleepers. So we are 1 week into rookie draft season. I've already had a few that have gotten underway or are already completed. Hopefully your leagues are getting underway as well with those drafts. And I've got some late round tips for you for today's show. And so we're going to get into some players that I like more than consensus, some players that I am lower on, and just talk about some guys that I think are nice sleepers late in your rookie drafts. So before we get into that, as always, make sure you are following this podcast on your platform of choice. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon, you name it, we're there. So go give us a follow so you don't miss any future shows. And leave us a 5-star review if you are so inclined. That really helps the show out, so it's greatly appreciated. And find us on social media. We're at Dynasty War Room on Twitter or X. Same handle on YouTube if you'd like to subscribe there. We're on Facebook as well. You can find me on Blue Sky at Andrew V. Court. So go find us on social media. We're happy to interact and answer questions and talk about fantasy football. So with all that being said, let's before we jump into the show, I also want to say that our podcast here has we now have a brand deal that's coming. So we're going to have more information coming in the coming weeks here about that opportunity. So we're excited about it and can't wait to share more, but not for today. We'll get into that more hopefully next week. And so for now, let's move on into today's show and talk about some rookie sleepers. So I have 4 players on each side of the aisle. One set of players that I like more than consensus, one set of players that I like less than consensus. And I want to start with first the players I like more, the sleepers. And maybe we'll go back and forth here instead of just doing all the players I like, the players I don't like. But last week we went over my top 24 overall rankings. So if you missed that show, go back and listen to it because that's where we're going to get into, the majority of the prospects that are, the bigger names, the higher profile players that you're talking about in your first and second round of rookie drafts. So go back, listen to that episode. A lot of good stuff in there. And so far it seems like, a lot of people came together on kind of tiers. I've noticed a lot of variation within those tiers so far. I think in the first round, we've noticed that Travis Hunter is a player that is polarizing. I've seen him go with the second overall pick. I've seen him fall to 6 or 7. So big range there. Same with Tet McMillan. I've seen him go 2. I've seen him go 7. Cam Ward. I've seen him go. I even saw Cam Ward go 101 in a league, which a bit unorthodox. Certainly do not recommend that. The better move there would be to trade back if you're set on a quarterback. But I've seen him go, that high, and I've seen him go as low as about 1.8. So very wide range with some of those guys at the top, depending on your team needs and how you feel personally. Because of course everyone is going to have slightly different rankings, and that's what makes the draft fun. So lots to talk about from last week's show, so go back and check it out. And for this week, though, some late round sleepers. One of the final players that we talked about last week was Jarquez Hunter, running back for the LA Rams. He was a 4th round pick, and he came out of Auburn, and he was my number 24 player. So he was one of the last players that we talked about because I believe we did the 24 plus 1. So you heard Hunter, and then Tyler Shuck was actually my number 25 player. And he's still right there in that range there, early 3rd for him. But Jarquez Hunter, I have him at number 24, and his current sleeper ADP is all the way down at 44th overall. So I have him quite a bit ahead of consensus, and I think 44 is crazy. Now, in fairness, I haven't seen him fall, past the middle round of the mid part of the 4th in any leagues. In fact, I think he's gone in the 3rd in pretty much all of my leagues. I've been able to scoop him up a few times in the middle of the 3rd, and I've been very happy with that. So, if there's a league that I'm in and I have a third-round pick and Hunter's on the board, chances are I am going to be adding him to my roster. And I want to address the issues with, Blake Corum and Kyron Williams and just kind of the Rams backfield, because I think that's part of the reason why some are a bit scared off. But to me, this comes down to a couple different things. Number one, Kyron Williams is not an elite athlete. He's a good running back. He's had very productive fantasy seasons. Sean McVay likes to utilize a one running back approach where they get the full 3-down workload, and that's been Kyron Williams. But Kyron Williams is also entering the final year of his contract. The Rams have not typically, they do not strike me as a team that is willing to pay Kyron Williams the type of money that would probably be needed to keep him around. And they've been drafting running backs in the past couple years to either find a complement or a potential replacement to Kyron Williams. Last year, they took Blake Corum on day 2 of the draft, and he's been struggling with injuries. He got hurt late in the year last season, and he was a very, very productive college player. Awesome college player at Michigan, but not necessarily the type of player that was going to be an explosive elite dynasty athlete, dynasty asset, and nor is he an elite athlete either. But he is someone that got a ton of volume in college, and if he got a ton of volume again in the NFL, I think he could be productive because he is very shifty. I wouldn't call him fast, but he is shifty. He's got some good agility, and he's just a smart player, reliable, solid but not special pass catcher. And because of the injury, and Blake Corum is also on the older side of being a prospect as well. So I just think that Jarquez Hunter is a better prospect. I think that Hunter is faster, he's quicker, he's more explosive. He can add something in the passing game. He can be a 3-down back. He's got very similar size to Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. They're all relatively smaller running backs, and they all come in right around 5'9", 205 or so. And I think that Hunter is somebody that the Rams like. They were able to snag him in the early to mid portion of the 4th round. Not all that different territory compared to, Baishal Tootin and Cam Scadaboo, who went in the early part of the 4th round. So I think there's a lot to like, and given the value that you're able to get on him in drafts, because while I have him ranked at 24, I have not been put in a position yet where, I'm at the 212, the 301, and he's been the highest player left, because generally I haven't had, I just haven't been in that position yet, because usually there are other players that have fallen. I've been able to get Jalen Knoll a couple times in that range in the draft, and Hunter's been there for me plenty of times in the mid to late 3rd. So if you're in that range and you are really into Jarquez Hunter like I am, you could even trade back a few spots and still potentially secure him, because there's a lot of excitement right now about some of the tight ends in this class, some of the quarterbacks that fell, and that early 3rd round range is where a lot of those guys are going. So it's pushing some of these other running backs, later into the 3rd round. And so for all those various reasons, Jarquez Hunter is a player that I like as a sleeper, and I have him considerably higher than current consensus ADP. And I do think that will change. So some of these ADP numbers are, of course, because we're only a week into rookie draft season. And so some of the pre-draft narratives certainly had an effect on this ADP. And so there hasn't been a ton of time yet for that sleeper ADP, which is average draft position, to fully catch up. However, I don't know that it's catching up fast enough for some of these players. And, so again, ADP of 44, my rank is 24. I think right now he's going somewhere in between those numbers. And, even if that is the case going forward, I still think that's going to be really good value, and he's going to remain a sleeper. Next up on my sleeper list, we'll go 2 sleepers and then 2 players that I'm lower on. So we'll go back and forth here. So my next sleeper is going to be another running back. This time, Woody Marks, so running back that also went in the 4th round to the Houston Texans. Currently, I have him as my 30th ranked player, and his current sleeper ADP is 48 overall. So similar to Hunter in that his current ADP is much lower than my rank. And Woody Marks is an interesting player because he's an older rookie, which is something that I typically don't love. But he's an elite pass catcher. He was really, really good in college at catching the ball, both at Mississippi State and USC. He was over there in that air raid offense at Mississippi State, transferred to USC, and had a really productive final season there. And so while he is an older prospect, and the offensive system, at least at Mississippi State, was a bit gimmicky in terms of the pass catching, he still displayed that at USC. And he's now entering a team in Houston where they're clearly trying to add weapons around C.J. Stroud. The Houston Texans went out and they got a couple receivers. They got a receiving running back. They've been addressing the offensive line after the huge shakeups that they've made there. And it still might be a subpar offensive line. And C.J. Stroud is going to have to get the ball out fast. That's going to be great for guys like Woody Marks. It's going to be great for these slot receivers that they have now with Christian Kirk and Jalen Knoll. And Woody Marks is not someone that was in my top 18 at the running back position pre-draft. And it was because of his age, because, I thought that teams might be a bit more concerned about his, size in terms of being a 3-down back, someone that can carry the rock and have a nice workload. But I think I underestimated, and so did, it seems like the Dynasty community in general, underestimated his pass catching ability and how much teams are going to value that. Of course, in fantasy, in PPR leagues, that carries a lot of value. Houston traded a lot to go up and get Woody Marks. They traded a 3rd and a 5th round pick to move up in the 4th round and get him. And there's not a clear backup behind Joe Mixon, who has struggled a little bit with some injuries as of late. So, not a player that is injury prone, certainly, but someone that might miss a couple games here and there due to some injuries. And even if he doesn't, the depth chart is wide open for Woody Marks to assume the number 2 role. He's going to be the 3rd down and 2-minute drill back, and he's probably going to end up having a couple games with fantasy value throughout the season. So do I think he is necessarily a 3-down back or somebody that can carry a full workload? No. I don't see him as that type of player. However, he can be a very good pass-catching back, a PPR machine, somebody that can help your dynasty squad. And to get him in the mid to late 3rd round, I've gotten him in the 4th round a couple times already. So he's kind of buried down the draft boards. So as you get into your late 3rd, early 4th round and, see if he's still there, because I have him ranked as a mid 3rd round pick, and I am perfectly fine with taking him there, and I'll feel great about it. Now, a couple players that I am lower on, so we'll do 2 of the 4, and we'll start with the big name. To me, Shedeur Sanders is going to be the first player that I am lower on than consensus. So right now, I have Sanders as my 47th ranked player. So that is the 411 in rookie drafts. Currently, his ADP on Sleeper is 24. So he's going right at the 2-3 turn in drafts. And that's consistent with where I've seen him as well. I still am seeing Shedeur Sanders drafted mid to late 2nd round. And then the couple times he's not gone there, early 3rd, anywhere from 20 to 28 has kind of been the sweet spot for him. And I think that's crazy because I think the chances that Shedeur Sanders is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns has to be below 50% right now. They drafted Dylan Gabriel ahead of him. They still have Joe Flacco. I'm not that worried about Kenny Pickett, but he is still there to cause problems. And sure, could Shedeur Sanders become the starting quarterback for Cleveland in the fall? Yes, absolutely. Is he the most talented player there? Maybe. He probably is. However, given the draft capital as a 5th round pick Dylan Gabriel is there, and he is not a slouch of a quarterback prospect. Now, was he someone that I think many people expected to be in position to start? No. But a quality backup level player. And given what we have heard about, Shedeur Sanders and his ability to prepare and run an offense and take everything seriously, I'm concerned. And given that we don't know that he'll be starting, to me, taking him at the 24th overall pick is too early. Now, am I too low on him at 47? Probably. I think that generally speaking, he is going to be taken ahead of that regardless. I probably won't have him on any rosters because of my ranking. And sure, as we get some new information, maybe I will bump him up a few spots as we go with this, into draft season. And if I'm on the clock in the early to mid fourth round and he is there and I have a team that, isn't loaded up with quarterbacks, might I take him a few spots ahead of my ranking? Sure. I think it's fine if you're in the 40s to, throw a dart at Shedeur Sanders in the early fourth round. But second round, no way. Especially in this draft class where I think there is a really strong grouping of players there at the back of the second between guys like Cam Skattebo and Baishal Tutin and Jack Besh. Mason Taylor is there, Jalen Knoll. So there's a lot of players there that I like. I'm not taking Sanders over any of those guys. There's a lot of running backs that I would much rather prefer to have on my roster than Sanders, because I just don't want to take that pick. And granted, the odds are generally low of hitting on these players this late in the draft anyways, but to then combine that with the fact that it's an even riskier position at quarterback where he might never see the field, and if he does see the field, I don't know. I just don't have high hopes or expectations with the fifth round capital, because it's clear that, these NFL teams did not believe in him or trust him to run their offense. And so I don't know why I should either with my fantasy teams. So Shedeur Sanders is a player that I'm lower on, probably not going to have any shares of him, and think he's going much too high at the 2-3 turn. The next player on that list of players that I am lower on than consensus is going to be tight end Elijah Arroyo. Came out of Miami. He was drafted to Seattle in the second round. Got good draft capital. I mean, second round pick is nothing to, throw up your hands at. That's a good spot to be. Goes to an offense that certainly is ripe for some competition because Noah Fant has struggled, never really lived up to his first round billing. And I am not entirely out on Elijah Arroyo. I just am a little bit lower than consensus. So I currently have him ranked as my 36th overall player. So that is the back of the third round. It's a 312. And his current sleeper ADP is 27. So he is going in the early third round, a handful of spots ahead of where I have him ranked. And this, again, comes down to the fact that there are other running backs that I would like to have. I'd rather have Hunter. I'd rather have Marks. I would rather have Tutin. I would rather, take my shot on potentially a Devin Neal, or if you're a Jonathan Taylor manager, a DJ Giddens. And Arroyo is someone that has really struggled with injuries throughout his career. There are other tight ends in this class that are available in the same range. Terrence Ferguson, Harold Fannin Jr. are both players that I prefer over Elijah Arroyo. And so to me, it's not necessarily thinking that he's going to be an awful pro. I think he certainly has some upside. Second round pick is a really nice place to be drafted as a tight end, but it's a bit of a crowded offense. He's not going to immediately take over the starting job. Well, in fairness, the others tight ends, Fannin might not be doing that either, obviously, with David Njoku, but the injuries really concern me. He didn't really show a lot at the college level in terms of production. He's a good athlete that's kind of a complete boom or bust type of player to me. And if you are shooting for the stars in the third round and you really need a tight end, I have no issues with that. I just think at where he's going right now at number 27 is just a bit too high. The tight ends are getting pushed up a bit in that range, and I would prefer him at the back of the third and not the front of the third. All right, so switching back over to the other two players that I like more than consensus, so sleeper picks that I like, and we're going to stay at the tight end position. We'll go with Terrence Ferguson. So I mentioned that he's going in a similar range here and as Elijah Arroyo, and I absolutely prefer Ferguson. I have him ranked 26th. His current sleeper ADP is 29, so not all that different, but still a couple spots different, and when you're talking the early part of the third round, that can make a difference. And he's going in the same range as Elijah Arroyo, who we just talked about, whose ADP was at 27. So Arroyo is 2 spots ahead of Ferguson, and I have Ferguson ahead of him in my ranks. So I like the fit. He goes to a good offense in LA, and the depth chart is wide open. Tyler Higbee has really struggled with injuries. I don't know that he's got more left in the tank. And even if he fights off Ferguson for the starting job for the bulk of this year, I would imagine that by the end of the season, we're going to start to see Ferguson on the field more and more, and that this job will belong to Ferguson in 2026. So he's a very good athlete. He tested really well at the Combine, was the fastest tight end at the NFL Combine. Although in fairness, some of the higher end guys like Loveland and Warren did not run. But athleticism is one of the most important things when it comes to tight ends. It matters far more than it does at any other position. You have guys, receivers that run a 4.5, 4.6, be successful all the time. You have running backs that do not blow you away with 4.3 speed and are still really good athletes. But at the tight end spot, the guys that are running a 4.6 or 4.5 do a whole lot better than the guys that are running 4.9s, 4.8s. That explosion with the broad jump and the vertical jump, all those things. The Combine matters more at the tight end position. And Ferguson was awesome there. He goes into a great depth chart, a good offensive system, good coaches, a veteran quarterback. I just think it's a good spot to be as a rookie to learn, get better, and then end up being a productive fantasy player. And so for those reasons, Terrence Ferguson is a sleeper that I like in the early portion of the third round. And my last sleeper, the final player that I like a whole lot more than current ADP, and that's going to be running back Brashard Smith. He went in the 7th round to Kansas City, running back out of SMU. He also played wide receiver in college. He actually started as a receiver at Miami before transferring to SMU, where he played running back. And I have him as my number 39 overall player, and he's currently being drafted with the ADP on sleeper of 53. So that means he's going undrafted in a number of drafts. In fact, on average, he is going undrafted in the majority of leagues right now. And I think he absolutely deserves to be a 4th round pick. If you early mid 4th round, he's the type of player that I'm willing to throw a dart at because he is a good receiver. Obviously playing that position before running back, he's got solid hands. He can run routes. He had good production numbers in the receiving game at college. And he had a really good year on the ground at SMU as well during their special college football playoff run. So I think that Smith is, he lands in a situation in Kansas City where there's Isaiah Pacheco, who was a 7th round pick himself so you've seen the Chiefs give a player of that draft capital an opportunity before. So who's to say they won't do it again? Pacheco has had some injury concerns, and there's Kareem Hunt, who is getting older now. So there's a lot of room for opportunity in Kansas City. And so between that and the pass catching and the fact that I did like him a bit pre-draft as well, I think he is a nice player to target in the 4th round of your drafts. And there's a window of opportunity for him to try to take advantage of. All right, so now moving back to players that were lower on, I'll go through my last 2 guys as well. And we're going back to the quarterback position. And we're going to talk about Jalen Milroe, who went in the 3rd round to the Seattle Seahawks. I currently have him ranked as my number 27 overall player. On Sleeper, he's being drafted right now He's got an ADP of 21 overall. So not terribly different, but again, kind of like Terrence Ferguson, it's close enough where, when you're talking about a pick near the 2-3 turn, it can matter a bit more than who you're taking a flyer on in the 4th round. So Jalen Milroe is a really interesting prospect because he is an elite runner and an elite athlete. He is somebody that, if given the opportunity to start games in the NFL, will probably score fantasy points because he's going to give you a pretty high base with his rushing ability. He also has a strong arm, he can throw the ball deep, and he lands in a pretty good situation in Seattle where there's only Sam Darnold ahead of him, who is on kind of a funky 3-year contract that's really more of a 1-year contract where, the sides can move on after one season, and that would, in theory, open a window of opportunity for Jalen Milroe. But the big problem with Jalen Milroe is he can't throw the ball. He is not a good passer. He simply is not good at reading defenses, and I just don't think he can throw the ball at an NFL level. Couldn't he run the ball at an NFL level? Yes. Can he throw a Hail Mary or throw a deep ball? Yes. But I have fears that are similar to kind of what we saw from Anthony Richardson this past season, where can he throw the ball way down the field for a big play? Yes. Can he run the ball? Can he can he be a goal line threat with his legs? Yes. But what about everything else? I don't know. I watched a number of his games, of course, in college, as I'm sure many people did, given that Alabama was always, featured in good TV slots. And just in particular from his games against Michigan, where I was watching every single snap with a very close eye, he really struggled against pressure. So I just don't know how he's going to do at the NFL level. Now, on the plus side, he is going to get a year to wait, a year to learn, to get better. So there is definitely potential, which is why I'm not out on Jalen Milroe. I just don't think I would take him with the 2nd round pick. I think 3rd round of your rookie drafts is where you want to look for Jalen Milroe. So if you want to take him at pick 25 or 26, I have no issue with that. I have him at 27. He's right in that range there in the early 3rd. But I do have an objection to taking him in the mid or even later portion of the 2nd round. Again, there are players in that tier that I like more, and I'm not willing to pass up on that for Jalen Milroe. But once you get into that 3rd round, as soon as you cross that line and your choice is, upside quarterback versus backup running back, okay, then I'm a little bit more indifferent about it. I think that I'm on board with that and willing to take the shot. As long as you recognize it is a very boom-bust type of player, the odds that he succeeds are quite low. But on the off chance that he does hit, he could be great for fantasy. So if you're somebody that really shoots for the upside, especially later in drafts, I can understand why he's being pushed up in ADP. I just think it's important to stay disciplined on him and let him fall to you in the 3rd, and don't get overly excited and reach or take him too high, which to me is in the 2nd round. And then the final player on this list that I have ranked lower than his current ADP, and that's wide receiver Alec Eomanor, who went in the 4th round to the Tennessee Titans. And I have him ranked as my number 40 overall player. His current sleeper ADP is 33 overall. So 7-spot gap. And Eomanor is somebody that was, I think, higher on the list for both myself and many other people prior to the draft. I think he was projected to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. He then fell to the 4th round. Kind of a killer for him in terms of draft capital, because we typically don't see a lot of 4th round picks be successful, especially when they fall like this. And in fact, Tennessee took another receiver over him, and I don't think either one is going to be fantasy relevant, at least not anytime soon. But it was a bit of a puzzling draft for Tennessee in terms of offensive weapons. They took Khalil Mullings in the draft later as kind of their third running back. They took a couple receivers, and maybe if the order had changed, if they had taken Elike Omenor in the third round, you would be looking at this a lot differently. But I just can't take a fourth round receiver at pick 33. Given the scenario, the fact that the team did take somebody else, it is a rookie quarterback, who knows what the offense is really going to look like. I'm fine with taking the shot later once you get into the fourth round, but I'm just not doing that in the third. In fact, I think if I were to go back and take a look at my rankings, I think there really is only one day 3 receiver that I'm really even remotely interested in when we get into the third and fourth round of rookie drafts, and that's going to be Jalen Royals, who is my number 35 player. So I do like him. I think he went to a good landing spot with Kansas City. But even then, that was a player that I had ranked very high pre-draft. He was a top 10 receiver for me, and so he definitely fell down the list by going in the fourth round. So, but Elike Omenor I had lower on my list than a guy like Royals, and then he gets bad draft capital to a mediocre offense. I just am not that excited about it, and I will let other people take the shot on him. Instead, I will be targeting running backs in this range. There's a lot of backup handcuff type running backs that should be available in the mid to late third round where he is going. So I would rather take my shot on any of those guys, whether it be a Jaden Blue, Woody Marks, DJ Giddens. We've talked a lot already about Jarquez Hunter, but there's a bunch of running backs that I think represent solid dart throws. Ollie Gordon is a player that I like, going to Miami. Jordan James has been there in the fourth round a lot. He went to San Francisco. Later in the fourth round, there's Trevor Etienne. So a lot of these guys that are all crammed up together in the third and fourth rounds, and I would prefer to take my shot on the running back position rather than aim for wide receivers at this point in the draft. So there you have it. There is 4 players that I like as rookie sleepers that I'm higher than consensus on right now, and 4 players that I am lower on compared to consensus. And I think that should give you a pretty good idea of kind of where I stand on some of these third and fourth round picks. I'm a little bit lower overall on the quarterbacks. I'm not opposed to taking them, but I think in general I'm a bit lower on every single quarterback in this draft than maybe the consensus, with the exception of Cam Ward, who I think I have him at number 5. I think that makes a lot of sense and is in line with where most other people have him. But I've seen some ranges there. Depending on, I think a lot of it comes down to need for Cam Ward. But for everybody else, I'm a few spots lower on Jackson Dart, a few spots lower on, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck actually might be the one that I have about on par with others. And sometimes I'm questioning if I have him a spot or two too high. I probably will bump him down maybe one spot or so and swap him with Terrence Ferguson. I think I'd probably take Ferguson over Shuck, so I'd probably switch those two at 25 and 26. But running backs. That's probably where you should be going with your late round picks. And if not, some of these tight ends in the late third, and figure things out from there, because this was a good running back class, and even though we didn't get awesome landing spots for a lot of the day 3 players outside of a few at the very top, I still think that there's a lot of talent there, and we continue to see players taken on day 3 at the running back position that end up with at least solid handcuff value, depending on how injuries play out. So there you have it. A bit of a shorter episode today after last week's big long rankings episode. So again, go back, check that episode out if you have not listened to it already. And thank you all for tuning in. This is the Dynasty War Room Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Valancourt, and we will talk to you all next week.